The next lesson we're going to look at is sailing knots. And whilst there are hundreds of different knots that you can use in various sailing applications, there's only really a handful that you really need to know as a novice sailor that will get you by 99.999% of the time. We're going to start off with the characteristics of a good knot. The first one is that you need to be able to tie the knot correctly. It's very important that when you tie a particular knot, that you do so correctly. And you need to be able to do it left-handed, right-handed, behind your back, without looking at it. The second characteristic is that you need to use the right knot for the right application. And then lastly, any good knot needs to be easily undone. You don't want to have to take your knife to the line to free it up when you need to undo the line. When you're learning to tie knots, it's important to teach your fingers, not your eyes. In many applications, you won't be able to see the knot that you're tying, either because it's shielded behind something, behind a sail for example, or it's nighttime and you don't have sufficient light to see what you're doing. So it's important to train your fingers. And what I suggest you do is get a short piece of rope about 2 meters long, and whilst you're watching your YouTube videos, sit there and tie knots unsighted. The 7 knots that we're going to cover are firstly the figure of 8 stopper knot, and this knot should be done at the end of every line on a boat. The purpose of the figure of 8 stopper knot is to prevent a rope from pulling through a block or a cleat. The next one is the reef knot, and we use this when we're reefing our mainsail. Then we have the bowline. Bowline is probably the most versatile knot and one of the best knots you'll ever learn to tie. And it's used to make a loop in the end of a line. Next we move on to the clovehitch. The clovehitch is a knot that we use to tie a rope to a spar. Now in sailing terms, a spar is any solid, rounded piece of material. So your mast, your boom, your spinnaker pole, your stanchions are all considered to be spars. Then we move on to the round turn and 2/2 hitches, and that we use to tie our fenders to the safety lines. Remember, fenders are those big balloons that provide cushioning between 2 boats or between a boat and the walk-on or finger. The sheet bend, and there are 2 versions of the sheet bend, the single sheet bend and the double sheet bend. And a sheet bend is used to tie 2 pieces of rope together. We use a double sheet bend if the diameter of the 2 pieces of rope is the same or very similar, and a single sheet bend if the diameter of the 2 pieces of rope is different. And then lastly, a prussik knot. And a prussik knot comes out of the rock climbing fraternity, but in sailing it's very useful. It can be used to unjam overwinds on a winch. It can also be used to climb a halyard if you need to get up your mast. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson on knots. If you have, please remember to subscribe, and if you have any questions or suggestions, leave them in the comments below.